Well, here we are back on the AM show. It's time for us to dig into the papers, and I'm in very good company. My colleague in mischief. He's one of my colleagues in mischief. Positive mischief, if you like. But right before I introduce him, let's get into the sponsorship for this segment, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they are offering gratis, free, Rebi. If you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Where can you locate them? Here in Accra, they are in Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Abwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. You can find them in Anaji Estate if you are in Takrade. If you are in Tema, Community 22 is where you can locate them. Techiman Hansua and Siama Enzima. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease, but just the start of the news review. And today, like I said, you don't often see him. He's usually doing legal stuff, but he's here in the studio. Joseph Ackah-Blay. Let's do it like we do with Kojo Brace. Charlie, what happened to say?
Abako.
Ghana man,
I mean, we can try in Zima. So
I was going to ask where you come from, and then give us something.
Yeah, I'm from Ekwe.
Ekwe.
Yeah, it's in the
Western.
Yeah, Western region. It's in the Elembele constituency.
Oh.
Yeah, so the deputy minority leaders constituency, Manu Amakufibua. So
I see.
Elembele, yeah.
I see.
So I mean, you say Kodie.
Oh yeah, Kojo Brace has said it on the show before,
okay,
and I would say what? I always have to.
You can either say Bete or Milwaukee.
Yeah, he said Milwaukee. Yeah, I remember. That's
he's a hunter, so they are more likely to say that, but both are correct anyways. It actually doesn't even mean I am fine. It simply means like a day.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, I get it.
Milwaukee.
So it's sort of slang within the language.
Yeah, so like Milwaukee, like
So what's the other one? Better.
Better is like fine.
So like chi that form. What
It's a G dialect.
No, it sounds good. Charlie, I'll come for lessons. You teach me a few things. But how do you say football in your language?
I have no idea.
You know, there are some words in the English language that you would really struggle. Either they don't exist, or you would struggle to find them in some specific local language.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally there are things that didn't emanate from here. So our languages have not been developing for a while. So it's yesterday on SMS we were trying MRI.
Challenge.
MRI in Chi. I mean, and we also tried domestic debt exchange.
Wow.
Okay, that one I said it is a fie car SSI.
Okay, that makes sense. Some of the terms are interesting. I remember the first time I heard of gas. You know gas, right?
No, I have no idea.
I think Ujaframa, something like that.
I think I should think so, yeah.
Ujaframa. Yellow is Akokosradi. You know, some of these things are interesting. The coinages just to match up. But you know what? It'll be interesting to find out, how do you say football in your language? Local language, whether Dagbani or whatever. Share with us live on the AM show. You can shoot us a message. But before we get into the papers, you know, Ackah-Blay has these legs, wonderfully shaped legs, like Abediayu Pele. That's why I brought in the football bits. Do you play football?
A long time ago, I used to play. I played under 12.
But you say,
oh no. Those who I mean,
coach football.
I'm sure. Yeah, coach football under 12, 14, and 17. Yeah. I stopped at a point.
Why?
So I stopped when I was at under 14 and I was playing a bit of 17. The reason is those who used to play under 17, some of them were very talented, and they left to join teams, and they kept coming back. Like you get it, like people who are better than you.
Yeah.
Then they get a deal, they go. Then after a year or two, they come back again to the same club. So I felt like I was like. Yeah, I'm good, but I'm not as good as this guy. So why has he gone and he's come back? So I thought it was too risky a thing. So I just thought I should just focus on schooling. Yeah.
I wish you had pursued it though. I
also actually think so.
That dream, because
I also actually think so.
I feel nowadays many people who dropped football at a point who are very talented, they would be kicking themselves, looking at how lucrative football has become.
Yeah, and I mean, even experience has taught us over the period that it's not the most talented footballers that actually make it to the top.
True.
We know players like Freddie Edu. There is this Boyan. He retired.
Which Edu? Is it the one who ended up playing for the United States?
Exactly.
That one?
Yes. You know, he was likened to World Pele at a point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, what became of his career?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a player, Boyan, he used to play for Barcelona, very top player, but he didn't get to the pinnacle as we expect. So it's not necessarily how good you are.
That even reminds me of Adia. you remember?
Very well.
Adia was scouted to be the next. I think he was the player of the tournament.
Yes, and the other player to Ransford say. In fact, Adia went to AC Milan after that.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily, you don't need talent you don't have to be the most talented to get to the top. It goes beyond talent and everything.
It is what it is. But let's get into the papers. For me, I have the Daily Graphic, Ghanaian Times Publisher, and the Custodian. What do you have?
I have with me the Daily Guide, the Finder, and the Daily Statesman.
Okay, let's start from your end.
So I'll start with the front page of the Daily Guide. It says a new common fund sharing formula approved, and massive turnout for Baumia Group launch comes along with a photograph of that event. And Mahama buys delegates with awards. It comes along with a photograph of former President JDM. A court orders Ato-Forson to open his defense and prioritize terrorism fights, Nana tells the UN Security Council. The back page says CAF confirms AFCON 2023 dates, and I have never felt old to retire, Hodgson declares. 75-year-old Roy Hodgson, who is going to take over at Crystal Palace. Forest boss confirms...
He's taking over from Patrick Vieira, right?
Vieira, who was sacked a couple of weeks ago. And Forest boss confirms Dede injury. And FIFA strips Indonesia of World Cup rights. Also on the back page, I'll quickly do the Finder front page. It says, Ministry denies politicizing road allocations. Professor Ofori-Buedu gets high recognition in US for professional contribution. And 2022 Jubilee House had 361 political appointees. 163 worked fiscally at the presidency, and 198 worked with other state agencies. And so that is it for the front page of the Finder.
All right, we'll be getting into the details of some of those stories. So if there are any ones you'd particularly like to get into from the Daily Guide, we could start from there.
I think the court orders Ato-Forson to open his defense.
That's a story you followed.
Yes, it has to do with this ambulance saga, and you know, some ambulances were brought into the country, about 50 of them. We are told that, according to the state prosecutors, that they were defective, in that when they came in, they realized that it did not meet the specifications. And Dr. Ato-Forson, current minority leader at the time of the transaction, was a deputy finance minister, and he had written...
who was it at the time? Was it Segbefia?
Segbefia was there.
No,
Segbefia was at Health.
Yes, who was the Minister of Health? It was Segbefia, right?
It spanned across. So there was a period where the Speaker of Parliament was also there.
Yeah.
Then there was a period that Alex Segbefia was also there. Yeah. But in terms of the finance ministry, it was Seth Tekwe and Dr. Kasiel Ato-Forson. They were the ones who were at that particular ministry. So the substance of the case against him is a letter that he wrote to the ministry, the Bank of Ghana, asking that it establishes letters of credit for the supplier. The AG argues that that is what set in motion the processes that led to the payment, in that that should not have been done until pre-shipment inspection had been carried out. Because if pre-shipment inspection as provided in the contract had been carried out, it would have been seen that the said vehicles were not fit for purpose, and so they would not have been brought in.
You know, pause right there. What interests me, I think just this year, we saw a similar situation, I think with ambulances as well. Similar situation, and I was asking myself, did we learn any lessons, supposedly? Because then again, you remember, I think even COVID-19, you remember we expended some, is it 16 million or 6 million or something, and we paid some 600,000, something like that.
Yeah.
If we go back, we'll get that story.
It was in there.
And even till now, we've not taken delivery of those ambulances.
Yes. So that shows that we don't really, learn much and change. But I mean, the court took the view that, and you know, once the prosecution closes its case, mostly the defense lawyers will make a submission of no case to say that the minimum threshold has not been met. But the court, presided over by Justice Efia Saribotre in her ruling, indicated that the lawyers for Dr. Ato-Forson seem to have misapprehended the law when they stated that the AG should have called Seth Tekwe to prove that Dr. Forson did not have authorization to write the said letter. It was the opinion of the court that once the AG stated that Dr. Forson did not have such authority, and he replied that he did, the responsibility was on Dr. Forson to show that he had the authority to do so. And so Dr. Forson is supposed to open his defense. The case is back in court on April 13. Two others were also before the court: former Chief Director at the Ministry of Health, Seth Animana, and the businessman Richard Jampa, who acted as an agent for Big C Trading Company Limited. The company was supposed to supply the ambulance. Is also supposed to open his defense. He had argued the separate legal personality argument, but the court disagreed that in instances where illegal activity is suspected or alleged to have been committed, the veil can be pierced to have him go ahead as the controlling mind to open his defense in this particular matter.
Well, usually you would hear that he who alleges must prove, but as the processes go on, Ato-Forson will also have to come in, like we say, remove his mouth in this matter. That's an interesting one, especially now. You know what interests me? This entire saga, Dr. Castle Ato-Forson has been pretty upbeat, optimistic that nothing will come of this, that it is just a witch hunt or something of the sort. But especially now that he is, heading the minority, if anything were to happen, I like playing with hypotheses and scenarios and how this would go if that happened. But if any such thing happened, it could be pretty tricky.
Yeah, in fact,
for the NDC.
The judge had indicated that she hopes she will be able to conclude the matter by June this year. That's just about 2 months away. So, I mean, it'll be quite interesting. This was one of the issues that people pointed to when Dr. Ato-Forson was made the minority leader about, what happens should the expected or unexpected happen, depending on which side of the matter you are on. So
anyway, my final question on that bit: whatever happened to those 50+ ambulances? What has happened to them?
They are parked at a national security facility under the supervision of the National Security and the Ministry of Health, but they are just unfit for purpose. I mean, the government holds the view that they are simply Benz buses, no proper equipment. It's not an ambulance. That's just basically the description. And the judge yesterday actually noted that what is obvious from the arguments in court is that all sides agree that the ambulances are defective, because whilst the defense hold the view that they can be remedied in terms of the defect, the prosecution holds the view that they are not fit for purpose. And the judge says that leaves the court with no doubt that if you buy vehicles that you're supposed to use and you're unable to use them, there's no doubt that a loss has been occasioned.
So loss, but will this loss amount to punitive measures, especially considering the status, so to speak, of Castle Ato-Forson, Dr. Ato-Forson in Parliament? Well, only time will tell. I saw a story in the entertainment spread of the paper on Yul Edochie. You remember his saga with his wife? Yeah. So he has lost a son?
Yeah. The story here says that a boy was rushed to a Nigerian hospital after falling unconscious, but he didn't make it alive. Very unfortunate. His sister-in-law, who was at the scene, reportedly said that the boy read throughout the night preparing for his exam on Thursday. Oof. After his exam in school, he joined his mates to play football, and that's when he got a seizure and was rushed to the hospital. And all efforts to resuscitate him proved futile. Wow, very unfortunate.
So I get it that he was already stressed. Sometimes he was already stressed.
Exam.
He was preparing for exams. So you do a lot. You remember back then in school, you basically had your phone and all of that. Yeah. Your body is already under pressure. I don't know what the other circumstances are. I don't know whether he regularly plays football or whether he just wanted to do it. Because something that, and all respect to Yul Edochie and his family, no one is trying to denigrate anything. We condole with him. But sometimes in sports, it's like working out. You don't start go into it. Yeah. I've heard the story of a medical doctor who recommended that a woman who had quite a bit of weight had to start exercising and she should take a walk. He didn't specify how much she should do, or maybe not to go overboard. She really went at it the very first day. Came, passed out, that was it. Her heart gave up on her. Yeah. So we don't know whether, considering all the stress he was likely going through preparing for exams, then going boom, if he's not someone who plays. Football is like that if you don't play. And we've seen players fall on the pitch.
In fact,
Marc-Vivien Foé,
even footballers, these are people who are very athletic. It happens to them. I think it's good to exercise, but it needs to be under some form of professional supervision sometimes. Yeah.
And moderation really is needed. Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. Nalerigu Gambaga constituency, home of scenic tourist sites, and Ghana Month. We're showing you today that bit by Rafiq Salam in that baobab tree in which you can enter. There's a door that has been carved and a window as well. You can actually hide from the rain in there. Tackling violent extremism requires collective response. President Akufo-Addo says so, and he said that at the UN Security Council. Power production in danger. ECG owes IPPs, that is the independent power producers, $1.4 billion. And there's been talk recently about paying them $50 million a month and all of that, but they have roundly kicked against that. 4 parties kick against overhaul of constitution. And we've heard Mr. President also speak on that in recent times. But there are many who have said that the Constitution, even lawmakers, parliamentarians who have said the Constitution is in dire need of some tweaking. Let's do those stories, and I'll also do some international stories in the paper. But emergency facility needed along Tamale-Kintampo Highway, and this stretch has seen a lot of accidents. This Tamale-Kintampo Highway, last year, horrific accidents, big bus accidents and all of that. I suspect that is part of why, yes, and that is exactly what the story says, to handle accident cases that occur on the stretch.
Too many people died that we lost on that stretch. The musician,
Ebony Rains.
Yeah, that stretch.
Yeah. I know she was coming from the Ashanti area, from Kumasi.
Yeah. I mean, it's in fact, a couple of weeks ago, Erastus brought us this story about that effectively documented the accidents that have happened on that particular stretch. And so it's quite disturbing.
Let's get into that story very quickly. Not the Kintampo one, but independent power producers, the electricity generation companies that control 50% of the country's generation mix, have called on the government to urgently settle its indebtedness to them. The 9 companies said the ECG owed them about the cedi equivalent of $1.4 billion as of last month. The independent power generators, formerly known as the Chamber of Independent Power Producers, Distributors and Bulk Consumers, told the Daily Graphic in an exclusive interview that the government must pay up at least the overdue debt, which constituted more than half of the indebtedness. Quoting them, they say, just to wrap, if the ECG does not pay up part of the debt owed our members, they cannot guarantee continuous production of power for the next 2 weeks. The situation is so dire that something urgent must be done. The Chief Executive Officer of the IPGG, Dr. Ackah-Blay told the Daily Graphic in that interview. That's like a warning for us. 1.4 billion is no mean sum. In fact, government also owes some of these power producers themselves. I'm talking about the local, so VRA, NEDCO, ECG.
Yeah.
And the ECG has been on its own drive. It's interesting how they are targeting government institutions now. The Finance Ministry, the University of Ghana.
Yeah, they are the ones who owe them the bulk of what is outstanding. Yeah. And it's sad.
But there's industry, steel producers and the rest who are also
yes.
Salt producers.
They know themselves.
They know themselves
about that. But we fail to make power quite profitable. We've not been able to collect what we are giving out by way of the power in order we all use electricity. It should be able to pay for itself. I mean, why is it that someone that's giving you electricity that has been used and you're unable to pay for it? It's very difficult to tell because the person you are giving it to has to give you the money and you pay the guy who gives you the power. It's very simple, but we know there are system losses.
So I take from you, you consume the power, I take from you, I pay the next person, and we continue the cycle to ensure that everything runs well. But you see, it interests me because that also brings to mind subsidies. Remember under the Rawlings administration, that was why eventually we had to do away with these subsidies because they were crippling our economy in different ways. In fact, Nigeria currently, they are undergoing something of the sort where they're going to wean the population of subsidies, but in return, public sector workers will get a little top up in terms of their salaries. I mean, that is in the in the process. But in this instance, I really don't know.
But you see that the reason we don't allow even other private suppliers to on their own play the role that ECG plays is because we know that electricity is essential. And so the least we can do is to ensure that at least the ones that we are given, we are able to get the money back. And yesterday we reported about power theft. We've seen police barracks that are illegally connected. We've seen a hotel at Ackah-Blay yesterday. I was listening to the external affairs manager.
We will just avoid mentioning the name, but we...
Yeah, she says...
This is illegal.
Yeah, she said they have a whole infrastructure.
It's a facility. They created a facility just to circumvent
bypass the process. This is very deliberate.
And this is a popular... Do you know, when I saw it... Because recently, just a few days ago, a friend was showing me the place. Apparently, someone had a plush wedding. And,
I have gone there before with Mukutu and a couple of others. We've gone there before.
So the person was showing me this just a few days ago. Yeah. So when I saw them, I was like, So I opened the thing and said, hey, put your light, bro. And the charges, be small like that too. Them charges, well, it is what it is. Let's see how that goes. But I really hope that is resolved because having experienced Doomsday, Charlie, we don't want to get
and you know that there's a load shedding.
We beg them. Yeah, as for the load shedding,
yeah,
let's not make people think that it is tied to this, because it is not. But it started yesterday.
In fact,
some people were affected yesterday.
In actual sense, the external communications manager says it's actually been on for 7 days already.
That explains, because in fact, in my area, it's been. And
my area tweet went off 2 days ago. So they were explaining that the rule is that it goes off between 6 and 11 for 5 hours. So it goes off. So when it goes off today, then you have electricity for 3 days. Then your area goes off again. And so that explains why 2 days ago my area went off. So it presupposes that maybe my area will go off maybe tomorrow. But the load shedding timetable is available. It's on myjoyonline.com.
You can check it out from there. Let's quickly make tracks. I just want to highlight this story because I know you'll be interested, and then look at, just go to the headlines in the international. 4 parties kick against overhaul of constitution, but CPP supports amendment. So the CPP supports it. Sami Jemfi, National Communications Officer of the NDC, says the party shares in the call for constitutional amendment, but the lack of consensus among the major stakeholders and political parties has hindered a review of the constitution. Remember 2010? Under Atta Mills, the Constitutional Review Commission. They came out with, their findings. A white paper was issued, and that was the end of it. The MPP explains that the amendment should be centered on specific provisions, and no one has said it should be a wholesale. What do you think? The PPP, PNC, and others independent groups are saying, you know what, let's not go this way. What do you think?
I think we can make some amendments. I don't buy the overall, like a grand overhauling of too many parts of the constitution.
I agree with you, but some things.
Yeah, some amendments were over one thereabout, because I think generally constitutions also reflect the aspirations of the people as well as the framers who put together the constitution. And I mean, we heard the court in the Tufo vs. Attorney General case indicate that the constitution is a living organism capable of growth, and so that growth takes place when amendments are done and when the courts apply or interpret and enforce the constitution. It makes changes to it. So I'm not for a wholesale review. I just think that there are parts of it that we can tweak as and when they become necessary.
Just on that point, you know what the constitution says about cabinet and the ministers and all of that. The 19 stipulated by the constitution, which we have flouted flagrantly, like you book constitutional on that. I think currently we have, is it 26 or 28?
Making up the cabinet.
Yes.
So what they mostly do.
So the ministers.
So what they mostly do is that in terms of the official records, they will still have the 19, but I mean, in terms of those who attend the meeting, there will be, more than 19.
These are things that we really ought to look at. For me, those are some of the little things that we ought to contemplate. But on the international front, Google, others criticize Uganda anti-LGBTQ bill. Charlie, I'm finding so many things that I know because we are students of the law. What do you make of it? Sentences up to about 20 years. They call something aggravated something. I've seen the list. Charlie, don't be joke. And here, we've seen Kamala Harris come through her rhetoric. We've heard from Mr. President, and then the speaker went gaga on that matter. What do you make of it? I
think Parliament yesterday, the committee is recommending the passage of the anti-LGBT bill.
I saw one of the MPs on the committee saying that, Charlie, they are going to go ahead.
I mean, I just hope that what Parliament passes eventually is not going to be something that restricts rights. I mean,
the President said there have been modifications.
Yes.
Parliament has confirmed that some things have changed.
So we have to see how the document looks now. I mean, that will be difficult to tell. But I for a start, have always been against the advocacy element that the law was attempting to criminalize. I mean, I thought that impeded directly on free speech. I mean, I think it's within our rights to want to legislate against such acts that we consider wrong. But I think in doing so, we have to also stick to the ethos of the Constitution, which speaks for fundamental human rights, and that is also provided for. So it's just about finding the right balance, just to ensure that all sides of the country, and more importantly, the rights of citizens, are not needlessly curtailed.
Harris, the American Vice President, enters fray over democracy with visit to Tanzania. She's pictured here with Philip Mpango, Tanzania's Vice President, and Salva Kiir breaches South Sudan peace agreement. That's it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. There were quite a number of themes to discuss. But let's check out some other papers.
I'll just end with the Daily Statesman. It says, prioritize terrorism fight, Akufo-Addo charges UN Security Council. And BMW that is Bawumia must win. MPP should make history with Bawumia. And the story about the president submitting the annual report on staffing to the presidency. At the back page, Ghana captain Andre Ayew wishes Muslims a fulfilling Ramadan. And Carl Frampton column, Anthony Joshua needs to knock out Jermaine Franklin, then call out Tyson Fury. It's also on the back page. I think that will be it for me, Ben.
You know, speaking of the fast and everything, there was a question about some Black Stars player. I'm not going to mention his name. Whether he's practicing, because I say, I don't know, because some were avoiding water. Oh, Charlie. Senior go away that thing. A very good morning to Charlie. Oh dear, we'll leave it there. I'm not earning his kind of money, so you make her relax. We drew her, then maybe we'll look at what happens. But the Ghanaian Times newspaper, parts of country to face 14-day power interruption as a Triable gas plant shuts down for maintenance. NIA begins distributing backlogged 541,529 Ghana cards Wednesday. And MP urges President to ratify amended Suicide Act. This one, I was so happy, decriminalizing, the attempt to commit suicide. Because, the person, and across the world, this is something that the person is considered ill, basically.
Yeah,
it's a form of illness. If you're in your proper state of mind, you wouldn't contemplate. And in our situation, on the back of the harsh economic situation and everything, I have met people, look, right in front here, in front of our premises. There was a day when, especially when inflation had gone so high, fuel prices were at their peak and everything, right in front of us. I saw this young man. I don't think he was losing it, but he passed by. I even shared it in one of my blunt thoughts. He passed right by me. This guy was just, even the cars passing, he hadn't lost it, but he was just talking, he was just lost in thought.
Yeah.
People like that, it's just a fine line between giving up on it all. And to incarcerate such people, I find it really unfortunate.
And the other part of the good thing about this amendment that has gone under the radar bit is that they also amended the Mental Health Act. They amended under it the interpretation section to include suicide as part of the mental disorders. That is, people who are having suicidal thoughts. They've included it in the definition of mental disorder. And so that will allow for such persons, if you manage to intervene to prevent someone from committing suicide, that person could be taken over to the health facility to be treated, as against what we had in the past, where we'll simply arrest you and prosecute you, and you can be in jail for a maximum of 3 years. I
guess part of why I'm so passionate about this, twice in my life, uncalled for, I've had to counsel 2 people out of suicide. The first was on campus, University of Ghana. As the Legionary of Mary, we go around, we interact with people, share the word of God with them. I'll never forget. I went past that room and I felt something go back. I nearly moved on and I said, no. I went back to this room. It was in a Kwafu hall. I met this lady. She was preparing yam. I'll never forget. She was preparing yam and she, I'm busy. I was with a colleague and I said, you know what? We can stay while we just started speaking. This lady broke into tears. Apparently, the doctors don't know exactly what is wrong with her, but she's practically spends almost every week. At some point, she's in hospital. She has some conditions, and so she says, everyone in the hospital knows me. Yeah. I am like so regular. And she said she had been contemplating suicide. She had tried it, and that very week, within that week, she was really thinking of going, just ending it all. So we now had to sit down, speak to her. I took her number. I engaged her for months. Months. So it is real. The other one, I was in church some day after, Mass, and someone came to me that this person was looking for me. Someone that, the interesting thing is sometimes we don't realize that people are going through lots of stuff. This person, senior person in our church, in a group and all of that. So I felt, So when I went and sat by the person and he started telling me his story that, look, XYZ and I'm contemplating suicide, I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I just prayed to God to give me utterance. I met that person after so many years, just some weeks back, somewhere in Alaju. So that situation is very tricky. I don't think people should be victimized for that. Let's wrap with this one. NIA begins distribution of backlogged 529 Ghana cards Wednesday. What do you make of that back and forth and how much it owes? You remember they owe over $100 million.
Yeah, they managed to.
And recently they were given 100 million
money,
CDs or something.
Yeah, so that's how come they were able to print the outstanding ones, which they are going to distribute. I mean, I think if the overall objective is to have a credible database of citizens and persons who live in Ghana, the easiest way to do it is to make it very easy for people to get access to the card. If it's too difficult, then people will now want to go around and get it in various ways, and people will also feel like they are being denied their rights to get onto the voters register, since it will, the proposed CI is supposed to be the main document to be used. And so, I mean, the NIA, we all hope that the resources that they need is made available such that they can immediately print cards for people who need them and who wants them, and everyone should be able to get that card. And once we get to that level, I don't think people will complain about whatever we decide to use that card for.
All right, to wrap from my end, so the Ghanaian publisher, Akufo-Addo, submits staff list to Parliament. I'll get into that. Court orders are to force him to open defense. There's Amidu, Martin, Alamisi, Burns, Kaiser, Amidu. I love the Kaiser.
Yeah.
Sometimes I call him Mapka. Shortened form of it.
He said real anti-corruption crusaders don't wear masks.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you, what do you make of his latest? I don't want to call it a rant because then it appears, but he's written. He never writes short stuff. It's always he goes in there, in depth.
I like people who are like that. I don't want to be misunderstood.
He's very specific.
If I'm expressing myself, I want to express myself fully.
He's very specific, and I like that. So no one can take you out of context. Yeah. But that has to do with the Anas and Ken 25 million defamation suit. What's your take on what he said?
I generally agree with him on the law, as the judge stated it. As to the extra comments on whether anti-corruption crusaders must wear masks or not, I'm not too sure.
I think I was thinking the same thing you were thinking as well. I mean, if that is what it takes to fight. After all, our president himself said he would use the Anas principle.
Yeah,
Anas with a mask.
Yeah,
Anas has never been without a mask.
When he was
at least in this.
He was the opposition leader, when he came to power.
The network article, article. Akufo-Addo submits staff list to Parliament, and the President, in keeping with Section 11 of the Presidential Office Act 1993, that is Act 463, has submitted to Parliament the annual report on the staffing position of the Office of the President. The report, covering the period 1st January to 31st December 2022, captures 3 key areas, namely the number of presidential staff employed at the Office of the President during the period, the ranks and grades of these staff, and the employees of other public services assigned to the Office of the President. People have said that in dealing with cost, this too must be looked at, the staffers at the presidency. And have you seen, in recent times, I shared my blunt thoughts talking about some of the costs there. Yeah. And even this year, I think over 41 million or so for travel, just for a few offices, about 4 of them. Hey.
Yeah, they have a lot of executive assistants and
some of the titles,
technical advisor and technical economic advisor, strategists, a lot of things. But I mean, they've decided to put this out because mostly when they submit the list to Parliament, it becomes this political football thing. There are too many people there, and those things. But the presidency didn't put out the attached documents which would have the names and designations. They've not put that one out, but it was part of the package that they sent to Parliament, so that we'll see that Benjamin Akakpo, you are a technical economic advisor, or you are a messenger or executive assistant.
No. Even if you're a messenger, there's a nice way of couching it. They'll couch it now nicely. They will not. We're wrapping. Just final thoughts. Mahama to give awards for more NDC votes, and he's saying that in the constituencies also, the more votes you are able to get at the grassroots, will give educational awards or something. Have you followed that story?
Yeah, I've seen it. That's the Daily Guide captures it.
That's what
Mahama buys delegates. I think it's a scheme geared at motivating the party members to work.
The more votes you get, the more you get rewarded.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
let's see how that one goes.
Let's see how it goes. Charlie, it's been great. It's been great having you join me this morning. My blunt thoughts, maybe if you want to know the title, Beautiful Tombs, Ugly Bones, the cosmetics of our failed leadership. Beautiful tombs, ugly bones, the cosmetics of our failed leadership. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. You can look forward to that one after sports. Thelma Obimpe, my very good friend, celebrates her birthday tomorrow. I'll not be here. So, T, a very happy birthday to you. Mao Neira. Or Mao Bibi. So, stop disturbing me all the time. Thelma Obimpe, God richly bless you. Right before we go into sports, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering you free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. Locate them in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi Kronoma Abwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrade and Aji State Community 22 in Tema. Hanswa in Techiman and in Zama Esiama. Call them on 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Let's gear up for sports this morning, and we're talking about the Black Meteors and how far they have come under their coach. They've done wonders qualifying for the Continental Showpiece, but how did they do it? That is up next in sports. Do stay.